Welcome to the third and final part in a series of videos where I go over who the best live-action version of each member of the Justice League is. In this video, I'll be going over the new 52 recruits to the Justice League and the spin-off teams, Justice League Dark, Justice League International, Justice League of America, and also all the reserve members that they've had in the new 52, because there is a good amount of characters that are never technically, they've never been on the Justice League, but they are reserve members, and I wanted to include them. There are a good amount of characters that are new, so there wouldn't really be a lot of choices, but there are characters who do have a lot of choices from across the years, including a few villains. The new 52, for some reason, enjoyed adding villains to the Justice League, so like Lex Luthor, Black Adam, those are characters that will be in this video because they've been on the Justice League. But we'll get that out of the way. Let's thank my patrons for supporting me on Patreon. If you want to support me on Patreon to get videos early, to ask me questions basically whenever you want about anything, and just to support me generally, then a link will be in the description down below. I really appreciate it. With that out of the way, let's start right away with the initial recruits from 2011. Starting actually with Justice League Dark recruits, because the initial Justice League was just the original family members minus Martian Manhunter plus Cyborg, but Cyborg joined before the new 52, so we're starting with a couple Justice League Dark members. So let's start with the face of Justice League Dark, John Constantine, who made his live-action debut played by Keanu Reeves in the 2005 Constantine movie, followed by Matt Ryan in the 2014 Constantine TV show, and then he also later reprised his role on Arrow, and then on Legends of Tomorrow. Now, I haven't actually seen the movie from 2005, and I heard it's not bad, but I also heard they took liberties with the characters, and Matt Ryan's version of the character is generally agreed upon to be a pretty awesome version, and a pretty comic-accurate version as well, so much so that they actually brought back the actor for the DC animated movie universe, where he's one of the most significant characters, especially in the final movie, so I'm gonna have to go with Matt Ryan's version of Constantine. So then there's Madame Xanadu, who is not a very well-known character, but she was an original member of Justice League Dark, and she has appeared in live action, played by Gerald Prescott in the 2019 Swamp Thing TV show. It's the only live action appearance, so obviously we're gonna go with that. And the same goes for Rory Regan, aka Ragman, who was played by Joe Dinosol on Arrow, not for very long though, as he was quickly written off, which was weird, really weird. Those are all the founding members of Justice League Dark that have appeared in live action, other than the characters that have already been members of the Justice League, like Zatanna. So that's it for the Justice League Dark. There will be a couple new recruits down the road, but it happens spruced out here and there. I'm not going team by team, I'm still going year by year, but it just so happened that we started with Justice League Dark. And now we actually have the formation of Justice League of America, which is basically what the Justice League was normally called pre-New 52. Afterwards, they started calling the main Justice League, and there was a spin-off Justice League called Justice League of America in the New 52 and in Rebirth. In the New 52, it was led by Steve Trevor, who has been played by Kaz Garas, Lyle Wagner, Justin Bruning, and obviously the best version, Chris Pine, from the 2017 Wonder Woman movie, and that's it. No appearances in anything after that, like in a sequel. That is probably, that would probably suck. But he's a pretty good version of the character, so I'm going with him. Katana was a member of the Outsiders for a really long time, but she didn't join the Justice League until Justice League of America in 2011, and in live action she's been played by Rila Fukushima, which is in Arrow, and the very similarly named, or at least last named, Karen Fukuhara. They both have the Fuku in their name, which is a crazy coincidence, and out of the two I think there's a clear winner. The one from Suicide Squad is a bit of a nothing character, she doesn't really have any lines, and the single worst line from that movie, which is saying a lot, is talking about her, kind of. And the one from Arrow, Rilu Fukushima, was pretty great in Season 3 of Arrow, and in that one episode of Season 8, so I definitely will go with her. Catwoman is the first villain in this video, although she hasn't been considered a villain in a pretty long time, but she's also the character with maybe the single most amount of live action appearances in this entire video, with 10 different actresses playing her, which is like on par with Superman and Batman, where she was played by Julie Newmar, Lee Merriweather, Eartha Kitt, Michelle Pfeiffer, Casey Elizabeth Eastlick, Halle Berry, Anne Hathaway, Cameron Bicondova, Lily Simmons, and Zoe Kravitz, the last of which, and the newest of which, is the best version of the character, in my opinion. Stargirl has been played by Britt Irvin on Smallville, Sarah Gray on Legends of Tomorrow, and Brec Bassinger on Stargirl. The last of which is leaps and bounds ahead of the first two, where in those other two she was like a one-off character. Here she's the main character, and Brooke Bassinger does a pretty good job in the role. It's a really fun show. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it. So yeah, definitely going with Brooke Bassinger's version of Stargirl. The first true villain in this video, and there will be a lot, is Dr. Light, who was also a member of Justice League of America in 2011. He's only ever appeared in live action once, played by Michael Mosley on Titans, and just so you know, heads up, he won't be included in the big picture at the end with all the Justice League members, just because I don't consider him a Justice League member. I think it was very temporary, and it is only a spin-off team. Plus, he's 100% a villain. There are villains that are like Catwoman, or even Lex Luthor at times, who are somewhat heroic depending on how they're written. Dr. Light isn't really like that. He's 100% a villain, and he's not being included. Swamp Thing joined Justice League Dark after it was initially founded, and he has had 3 different live-action appearances. One in the 80s, where he was played by Ray Wise, he played Alec Holland, and then Dick Durek, who played Swamp Thing. Actually, that was 2 different movies. Then there was a Swamp Thing TV show from the 1990s, actually 1990, where Alec Holland was played by Patrick Neal, and Swamp Thing was played yet again by Dick Durek. And finally, the 2019 Swamp Thing TV show, which was tragically cut short, where Andy Bean played Alec Holland and Derek Mears played Swamp Thing. That show was actually a lot of fun, or maybe not fun, but it was definitely really well done. The Swamp Thing design is incredible in my opinion, and there was a lot that it was building up to that was just never happened. So definitely going with that version of Swamp Thing, and it's tragic that that whole universe was cancelled, because that was supposed to lead to a lot. Adam Strange was played by Sean Sipos on Krypton, the only live-action version of the character, and I don't think he ever suited up, so it's going to be hard to find a good picture of him to include in the picture at the end, but I don't think it's a crime if I don't, because he's always been a character who's teamed up with the Justice League, but isn't really much of a Justice League member, even though technically he has been, as you can see. But that brings us to another villain, the most significant villain in this universe, or, you know, definitely up there, Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor, along with Captain Cold, both joined the Justice League after the Forever Evil event, I'm pretty sure it was, in like 2014 or 15, and they were actually core members of the main Justice League. And for the purposes of this video, I will go over both of them, but for the image at the end, I definitely will not include Captain Cold, but Lex Luthor I think I might, just because he also joined the Justice League in the DC animated movie universe, so there is a precedent for him being a Justice Leaguer. Meanwhile, Captain Cold is just like a one-time thing that happened, and he's definitely more of a villain, even though Captain Cold has been a hero in live action. But anyway, Lex Luthor has obviously had a lot of live action appearances, but actually not as many as Catwoman, surprisingly, where he was played by Lyle Talbot, Gene Hackman, Sherman Howard, John Shee, Michael Rosenbaum, Kevin Spacey, Jesse Eisenberg, and John Cryer. Now, it's obvious that it's between John Cryer and Michael Rosenbaum. All their other ones kind of suck and aren't really good versions of the character. Now, I haven't seen Smallville in a good while, so I don't really have a huge attachment to Michael Rosenbaum currently, but I could definitely see if you were to say he's the best live-action version of the character, definitely respect that opinion. My personal favorite is John Cryer. I thought that he was really good in the 4th season of Supergirl, and in Crisis on Infinite Earths definitely isn't the best written just because he's on Supergirl, but I think that as an actor he did a really good job, and if he were to appear in Superman and Lois, I think he could be absolutely fantastic. Captain Cold was played by Michael Campbell in the 1990s TV show, but who really cares? It's obviously Wentworth Miller from the Arrowverse, and honestly, doing that last recording about Lex Luthor, I kind of changed my own tune because he was a hero in the Arrowverse itself, a member of the Legends. So, you know, he's been a Justice League member, he was a hero in the Arrowverse. Maybe I should include him at the end. If he's there, he's there. If he isn't, we'll see. But then we get another ice-based villain from a new team, Justice League of America, which is actually a team which is mostly comprised of characters that were or had roles in the Arrowverse, including Caitlin Snow, aka Frost, who obviously the best and also the only live-action version of the character is Daniel Panabaker from The Flash in the Arrowverse. Ryan Choi, aka The Atom, was also a member of Justice League of America, who was included just because Ray Palmer's Atom had a big role in the Arrowverse, but little did they know that Ryan Choi would then go on to have a very small role in the Arrowverse, having just like 2 appearances. his role is so weird. But anyway, that is still technically probably the best version of the character. He has had one more appearance, played by Kai Zhang. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce that, from Zack Snyder's Justice League, but he really only had like 2 or 3 scenes, and it never really suited up. He didn't really have much of a storyline. Osric Chow's version of the character has had a really weird inclusion, but you know, he had a role in Crisis on Infinite Earths. He suited up in Armageddon, so yeah, I'm gonna go with him. Plus, he has a costume, so I could include him in the picture at the end. The 4th villain, 5 if you count Catwoman, is Lobo, who was also a member of Justice League of America, who was played by MJ Scanlan on Krypton. If you're wondering, no, he doesn't have an Arrowverse appearance. Not every single member of the Justice League of America was an Arrowverse character, but it is mostly comprised of those characters. But yeah, Lobo, I'm definitely not including him in the picture though, because he's not a hero. He's 100% a villain. I don't know why they included him on this team. They liked including villains in the last 10 years. I don't know what to tell you. Now, Mera also joined the Justice League as a core member, and she has had 2 live-action appearances, one on Smallville, where she was played by Elena Satin, and then played by Amber Heard in the DC Extended Universe, the Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, Aquaman, the upcoming Aquaman 2. Now, I hesitate to say Amber Heard is the best version of Mera, because, I mean, Amber Heard is very problematic at best. But just ignoring the actress for a minute here, the character itself is pretty good, but I liked her in Aquaman, so yeah, going with her. Some of the craziest recruits to the Justice League came with this storyline from, I think it was like 2018, where the Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, the World Forger, they all joined the Justice League. Now, the World Forger hasn't appeared in live action, but the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor both have in the Arrowverse and Crisis on Infinite Earths, both played by LaMonica Garrett. Now, the Monitor I thought was a pretty awesome character. The Anti-Monitor, not really that great of a villain, they could have done better with him, but you know, they're both the only live-action versions, and if you're counting, that's 6 villains, and we're not even done because right after that is Black Adam, who is currently in the comics a member of the Justice League. It's crazy, it's so weird. So technically, Black Adam hasn't had his live-action appearance yet. He did appear in a tie-in comic to Arrow, kinda, but that doesn't count. But he also is going to make his live-action debut officially in a few months, played by Dwayne Johnson in the DC Extended Universe in his own movie, which is probably the reason they made him join the Justice League, and they're turning into a bit of a good guy because he's getting his own movie, and you can't have a movie where the main character is a villain or, you know, an awful person, which he is, but he is the second to last recruit to the Justice League, followed by Naomi, who is played also in her own show by Cassie Walfall. Not great, bad show, but the only live-action version, which also brings us to the reserve members, and there are a good amount, so let's go over them. Now, most of these characters have only ever had one live-action appearance, so I'll breeze through them. But let's start with Kate Kane, aka Batwoman, who, ironically, despite being like a founding member technically of the Justice League in the Arrowverse, she was only ever a member of the Justice League as a reserve member, and that was only in the last 10 years. But she's played by Ruby Rose in the Arrowverse and on Batwoman. Then there's Beast Boy, played by Ryan Potter on Titans. Hawk and Dove, played by Alan Ritchson and Minka Kelly respectively, also on Titans. Charles McNider, aka Dr. Midnight, who had an appearance on Legends of Tomorrow, played by Kwesi Emiya. I almost definitely didn't pronounce that correctly. And also on Stargirl, played by Alex Collins. And also before that, there was like Chuck, this artificial intelligence, which was voiced by Henry Thomas. But I go with the Alex Collins version of Stargirl, who had a couple good lines and a couple good scenes in season 2 of that show. Jericho was played by Liam Hall on Arrow, which is his live-action debut, but that is kind of a bastardization of the character. He's much more inspired by Grant Wilson. He doesn't have his powers, he isn't mute, and he's Deathstroke. He becomes Deathstroke. A much better version of the character was played by Chella Mann on Titans. If you notice, that's a couple different Titans now that we've gone over. Moving on to another Titan, but she's never appeared on Titans, which is Miss Martian, played by Sharon Leal in Supergirl and in the Arrowverse. Michael Holt, aka Mr. Terrific, renamed to Curtis Holt for some reason on Arrow, played by Echo Cullum. Rachel Roth, aka Raven, played by Tegan Croft on Titans. Emiko Queen, aka Red Arrow, who was turned into a villain for some reason, played by Sishimuka on Arrow. Robot Man, who on the DC Wiki is classified as the only reserve member from the Doom Patrol on the Justice League. So he's the only one that's being included, but obviously Brendan Fraser from Doom Patrol. Then there's Natasha Irons from Steel, renamed to Natalia Irons, and also changed from the niece of Steel to the daughter. She hasn't suited up yet as Steel, but she does exist, played by Taylor Buck on Superman and Lois. Speaking of Superman and Lois, John Kent, aka Superboy, aka Superman, played by Jordan Elsis on Superman and Lois, although you can argue that Jordan Kent is also inspired by John Kent, which I could definitely understand. So then there's Commander Steel, whose son has been a member of the Justice League since the 80s, or like he was at one point. But now in 2018, it was confirmed that Commander Steel, is a reserve member and of Justice League age, which is weird continuity stuff. But anyway, played by Matthew McCall on Legends of Tomorrow. Followed by Commander Steel are the last 4 characters, all of whom are villains and members of the Suicide Squad. 4 more villains who have been reserve members of the Justice League. This includes Captain Boomerang, who's been played by Nick E. Tarabi on Arrow, but a better version of him was Jai Courtney from Suicide Squad. The exact opposite can be said about Deadshot, who was better on Arrow, played by Malcolm Rowe, and not as good on Suicide Squad, played by Will Slapp. Then there's Harley Quinn, who also Suicide Squad and Arrow. Obviously the Suicide Squad slash Birds of Prey version of her is better, played by Margot Robbie. But she had a cameo on Arrow, played by Cassidy Alexa, but also that was only the body. Her voice was Tara Strong. It was only a cameo. Then there's Killer Croc, who technically the actual Waylon Jones version of Killer Croc has only ever had one appearance, which is in Suicide Squad, played by, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that name, but he also had kind of a different version of Killer Croc. The second Killer Croc appeared on Batwoman, and neither of them are very good, to be honest. But yeah, I'm not including any of those 4 characters in the picture because they're villains, and they're not even core members. They were only reserves, so not including them. But that brings us to the end of this video and the end of this series. I have now gone over every single Justice League member who has appeared in live action. There are 80 or so characters who have never appeared. Most of them are irrelevant, a couple of them aren't. But for the ones who have appeared, and the ones who have appeared in a good enough role with a good enough design and picture, which is almost all of them, there's only a few that I didn't include in this picture. This is what it looks like. This is every single Justice League member that I could put together into one image. This is what the endgame of a DC universe could look like, although it is even bigger than Endgame in terms of individual characters. Now, not every single one of these characters has been perfected. In fact, some of these haven't even appeared yet, like Hawkman and Black Adam. But I think for the most part, this would have been so cool to see on screen. Every single one of these characters together on screen, especially the main ones that form the Justice League, plus all the other ones that form the rest of the DC universe. There are a lot of DC heroes who aren't here because they've never been members of the Justice League, and that's just what I decided to focus on. But I still think this is pretty awesome, and if you agree, let me know in the comments down below. Which one of these characters do you think can they do better? And also, which one of these characters do you think they perfected? Because I do think there are a lot of DC characters that they have perfected in live action, and it would be awesome to see those versions together on screen. But if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe. If you haven't seen part 1 or 2, then definitely go check those out. And if you like this video, I already said that, goodbye, bye.